Reign of Kings. Is it worth a buy? Let's read the words. Struggle to survive in a harsh medieval world. Hunt wildlife, mine resources, build structures, and craft weapons and armor in order to protect yourself. You may form a guild, bring war to all oppositions, and try to seize the throne and become king. Wow, guys, this sounds like a great game. It really does. I've been playing it for 10 hours so far, guys. And yes, it is fun. It is a fun game. It's basically a cross between, well, basically it's Rust. It's got a bit of 7 Days to Die in it. It's got even, you could say, a bit of DayZ in it. It's got bits of loads of other survival games thrown together in one game. It's set on a open world playing area, which is not very big. Not as big as Rust. Not as big as 7 Days to Die. It's just too small. That's my first gripe. And what you do is you build your stuff, you chop down trees, you harvest wood, you harvest metal, stone, pick plants, flowers, and craft shit. Build a house, make it secure, build a bed so you can respawn on. It's like all other crafting games, you do that, except the difference with this one is there's a castle on the island, a bad castle. It should have been just a big castle in the middle of the island, but for some reason the developers have put this castle in the mountain on the far north of the island. The castle is shite. It's just full of holes and it's awful. And there's a throne there. You sit on the throne, you become king. You get a sword of the king and a crown. You can then tax every on the island, and you can get a percentage of everything that they mine or chop down or make. And you can rule everybody with an iron fist if you want, which is a really nice aspect of this game. It's a unique aspect of this game that I haven't seen in a survival game yet. But no doubt there'll be 1,000 survival games coming out now with this mechanic. You just watch. So you have to get yourself armed. It's a brutal game. You need to get yourself some armor. You can start off with the usual. It's wood, then it comes to leather, then iron, then steel. Same with weapons. You get shitty little wooden axes, but then you can get huge steel broadswords. You can craft nice houses. The houses are blocky and the usual bullshit, but you know, it doesn't matter. You can make them out of straw stuff like grass, wood, then you can make them out of stronger wood, logs, then you can make it out of stone. And the only way to breach a stone house is by making a siege weapon like a trebuchet, or you can use explosive barrels and stuff like that. So you get the idea. It's another death game, as you would expect, and with it being such a small island, the death is just, it's brutal. And the developers have added a lot of tools to make your brutal reign even better. You can hang people in a gallows. This means you need to get them onto the gallows. Well, the good news is you can capture them with rope. Walk up to somebody, tie them up with rope, they become ragdoll, you drag them into a cage called a dungeon, and you can just keep them in your dungeon. You can torture them, you can hang them, you can behead them, put them in stocks, whip them. You can do all manner of horrible things to them. They can, of course, get out of this if they have strategically placed a sharp stone up their arse. Because yes, there is an orifice hole where you can place a sharp stone, and you can pull that sharp stone out and either cut yourself free or kill yourself if you're just being griefed. I personally put a sharp stone up my arse because the island is only inhabited by men, and I wasn't taking any fucking chances. There's no women models in this game yet. It's just, and they're all pretty much naked. So what's the game like then? Well, it is a fun game, but the bugs kind of ruin it. For starters, if you go on one of the public servers, enjoy your 2 frames a second with all the bloody buildings. I had to turn everything to pretty much off in the graphic settings just to actually make myself able to run and walk around with all the buildings. And that's running on an i7 with the GTX 770. There's other bugs where I had a drink, and my punishment for having a drink was I sunk into the ground by about 6 foot. Then when I jumped back out of the ground, I was catapulted about 600 feet up into the air, and then obviously died when I landed. Blood floats in midair. You can't build on top of blood. The combat is bugged to bits. You end up jumping on top of people all the time when you're trying to have a fight. The combat, generally speaking, is just woeful. I mean, when you play something like Chivalry, which has very, very similar moves, and the combat's so fluid in that, and then you play the combat in this, it's just, you don't even know whether you're going to hit or miss. It's just pretty shite, the combat. Another thing about the combat is you can pretty much, it's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. I mean, I tested the javelins on one of my guild friends, and as you can see, it's ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. I mean, he looks like a fucking porcupine. He's dancing away happy with about 8 javelins sticking in him, you know? And that's the problem with it, you see. It's just an excuse to just murder people. It's just a game where you're running around this island murdering everybody, and people, the king's just a bastard usually, and he has his merry men going around murdering everybody, and that's the game, and you get bored rather fast with it. It needs a lot of love, this game, and the problem with that is it's made by Code Hatch. Yes, they're the people who brought us Starforge. Now, I first played Starforge back in June 2012. I've done 4 videos on Starforge on my sister channel, Max Corner, and that game has took a shitload of money, and what a mess it is. What they did with that game, they never delivered on a load of the promises that they had on the Kickstarter or when it was on Steam or on their webpage. They said they were going to do all these things with Starforge. People bought the game based on these things, and they just didn't deliver. What they did one day, they just kind of, what it looks like is they woke up and says, right, f*** it, game's done. And they just released version 1.0 or whatever it was and said, right, game's done, there you go, and they've moved on and they've made this. All I know is that developers that do things like that are ones to watch, and that's why I am not going to recommend you throw any money at this game, because there is no guarantee that you're going to get what you want delivered. It could be just another cash grab. It's a fun game and it has massive potential if the world was a bit bigger and they fix all the bugs and add a lot more content. I mean, the island itself only has a little cursed village which is so small it's not worth being on the bloody map, and the little tiny castle, there's nothing there. It's just a pile of shite really. A few mountains, a bit marsh, a few beaches and a bit of plain land and a few forests, and that's it. There's nothing really there. Another thing is the animals that live on this island. The AI is just pitiful. The animation is awful. I know it's early access, but I said in my early access video about the future of gaming and what early access is and all this, that games should not be allowed in early access till it's about 50 or 60% done. This is pre-alpha at best. These developers, what they need to do, Code Hatch, they need to show that they have integrity, and they need to take this game and run with it, and they need to throw their money into this game, hire in the right people, get it done properly, make it into a really good game, and set an example to a lot of the other people, learn by the mistakes from Starforge, and make this a really good game. It has the potential to become a very good game, but in order for that to happen, they need to get their finger out and get stuck into it. And I would love to see that. I would love to see them turn things around and regain some credibility in the gaming industry, because so far they've got fucking none after the abomination called Starforge. So I wish it well. I hope it does well, because it is a good concept, and if it does fulfill its potential, it's going to be a crackingly good game. But at the minute it's just too bug ridden, and I don't trust the developers. I just don't. So at this moment in time, Reign of Kings is not worth a buy.